Good night, everyone. Hi to everyone in Houston, Harris County, and around the country. We're here in Community Advisors RSR. I'm a private investigator, and I'm here with Eduardo Rodriguez, a former deportation officer, talking about what's in the country and what you see on TV and social media, and how it things that happen and how to interact with ICE agents and CBP agents or police in general when it comes to immigration. If you can introduce yourself, Ed.
Yeah, my name is Ed Rodriguez. I used to be a deportation officer with ICE, and before it was Immigration and Naturalization Service. What we're going to be talking about today is what is going on today with immigration, and also what, if anything, you can do to help your situation.
Thanks so much, Ed. If we can get right into it, thing that we have had more questions, but specifically one is that let's say I'm driving down the road and I make a U-turn, all of a sudden I encounter a police checkpoint or I'm driving, and certainly they stop when they're checking for a driver license, and I don't have one because I'm undocumented, and so gonna arrest me and send me to jail, me to put a nice hold, and also what car that are with me? Are they gonna be asking for their status as well, or no? What's what happens to the individual that doesn't have a license that is driving, encounters a checkpoint by ICE, uh, and also what happens to that are undocumented?
All right. Well, that's a good question, and here's the answer. I hope it's good. That's a good answer as well. But all right. So let's say you are driving. You don't have documents. The only thing you have maybe is a passport. You don't have any status in the United States. You entered illegally, and now the police officer is pulling you over. What can happen? What can you do? What can you say? What are your rights? There's a lot of good questions. Well, this is what happens. First off, in order for a police officer to stop you, he has to have a reason to stop you. And because he has to have a reason to stop you, that means that's covered under traffic law or criminal law. In order to be able to ask you questions, he has to read you your rights. You do not have to answer his questions because he is conducting a criminal investigation when he stops you like that. Now, when he asks you for your license, when he asks you for your insurance, when he asks you for all that stuff and you don't have it, uh, the easiest thing is don't argue with him. Go ahead and try to do as much as you can for him. But at the same time, there are certain things that he can't do. If he's not an immigration officer, he cannot ask you what country you're from. He cannot ask you what your legal status is. If you say, well, I don't have a license, and he says, well, why come you don't have a license? Well, you just say, I don't have a license. That's it. Well, are you from this country? You don't have to answer that. He doesn't have any authority to answer that question. Now, under the present deal that we have the possibility that we're going to have people who are going to authorize the police departments to start asking questions about immigration. Again, understand the situation. If the person is a police officer and not an immigration officer, and he pulls you over, he has to have a criminal reason, a probable cause under criminal law to stop you. If he does, then he has to read you your rights. The best he can do is ask you for your license, proof of insurance, and then explain to you why he stopped you. He can give you a ticket, and then he has to let you go. Now, what happens if he has an agreement with the ICE and he says, now, our department is now authorized to ask people what their status is? Okay, ask. Okay, what is your status? I don't have to tell him. Well, what country are you from? I don't have to tell him. Now, all that is based on the fact that he is a police officer. If he sits there and he says, you know what? I don't know what status you have, and I don't know whether you're from this country legal or not, but I'm going to go ahead and get a hold of an ICE officer. How long can he hold you? Well, under the law, when you're detained, you can only be detained for a certain amount of reason in a traffic stop. Most courts will say that anything over an hour or hour and a half is too much, too long. Majority of the time, normally a traffic stop takes about 30 minutes, and that's not bad. So if you're sitting at 30 minutes, don't worry about it. If you're sitting there at 45 minutes, it's not still not bad. But if he's having you sit there and wait for an hour, hour and a half, don't make a fuss. Don't get arguing with him. Just make sure that you memorize that. Write it in your cell phone. Have somebody that's watching or with you to write that down in their cell phone or what have you, and then that way you'll know. We're going to be able, or whoever your attorney is, or whoever is helping you out on this kind of stuff. They can ask for a copy of the traffic stop, the report, the call in. They call it the call sheet, and that should say how much time was actually spent there. Now, immigration gets there. But when the immigration officer gets there, he has the authority to ask you, what's your status? How did you enter? What country are you from? You have to answer him. You do not have the right to remain silent when an immigration officer asks you those questions. Why? Because it's his job to enforce that. And under the rules and under the law, the immigrant does not have certain rights when it's an immigration officer that's asking you. The criminal officer is totally different. Don't worry about if somebody says, "No, you have a right to this." I'm just telling you what immigration does and doesn't do. As a former immigration officer, as a former deportation officer, I'm telling you what we do when we pull somebody over. Now, if there's something legally wrong, if there's a violation of civil rights, let that be something we can handle in court, not on the street. Don't cause problems on the street. Don't argue with the officer. Understand that even if it's an immigration officer, they have friends, and all their friends have guns. We do not want to start a fight. We do not want to give these guys more reason to deport us. Because if you touch one of them, now you created assault. And assault is one of those that you can be deported on. So if you don't have anything, you don't have a criminal history, I know you may not like getting arrested, and I know you may not like being detained. I understand that. But it's better than getting beat up. It's better than getting hurt. It's better than arguing with somebody out in the middle of the street and losing any rights or any opportunity to stay in this country. It's better for people that know how to work inside the court to do that for you.
Thank you. Let's do a next question that people have been asking us here in advisors are. I know you have received calls, and it's me and myself as well, and reference to a car that's being shared about know your can you refuse to open the door to immigration or an apartment complex where you live? Uh, do you have the right to rent? Uh, do you sign papers that they give you or not? Be able to handle them that red card that basically tells you supposedly the rights that you have. You kind of touch the subject. Can you go more into details in terms of the rights that are documented in the states? What are their rights under the federal government?
All right, that's a great question. Here's what happens with that. The card that is being passed out, the information that is being passed out, it is correct. However, it's not complete. The right to remain silent works only for criminal and civil type cases. It does not work in immigration. If you do not answer the officer's questions, he will assume that you are not legal, that you have no status, and he can start deportation proceedings. He can arrest you, he can detain you, and start sending everything before an immigration court. Why is that important to know? Well, because you have to fight. You don't have a choice. You have to sit there and you have to make that determination yourself, but you're going to have to understand that you only have five rights. A non-citizen under immigration only has five rights: the right to speak to a judge, the right to know what the charges are, the right to speak with a representative or attorney, and the right to have the consul general know and be able to speak to them, and the right to maintain good health. That's it. All the other rights have to do with criminal, your civil rights, and all that has to do with criminal and civil. And those are totally different deals. Now, does that mean that you don't have those rights? No. If it is, like I told you with the police officer, if he pulls you over, that's a criminal stop. He has to give you the right to not speak. You have a right to have an attorney present when he's talking to you. You have a right to these kinds of things. But it doesn't mean that you have these rights under immigration law. Immigration law is different. If you don't answer, he's going to assume that you are not in this country legal. If he takes you down and he tells you, I want you to sign this and sign that, if you do not sign it, he will put down that you refuse to sign. It doesn't make a difference to him. So you might as well look it over and see if it's something you might want to sign. There are some things that you will need to sign, such as your property. If they take you somewhere to hold you for the night or for however long, they're going to take your personal property from you. You need to sign that that is, in fact, your personal property. Make sure that they write down and put everything in there, like your money, your watch, anything else that's valuable. You want to make sure that it's still yours and you can get it back. So yes, you're going to need to sign that. That does not have anything to do with you being deported or the deportation process. Every jail does that. It doesn't make a difference. Now, when they sit there and they say, look, you know that you did wrong, you know you did this, you have a right to go ahead and sign a piece of paper to be deported, or we can take you before the judge. Well, you don't have to sign that. You can put down, that I'm not going to sign it. Well, this is what happens. The deportation officer who's in charge of signing the deportation order and getting you out of the country, all he's going to do is put down refuse to sign. And then he's going to deport you. But wait a minute, what about the attorney? Why can't I talk to the attorney? You can. You have a right to talk to an attorney, but you have to pay for the attorney. They're not going to give you one. Well, what happens though when I get, to the courts? Well, the same thing. The judge is going to ask you, do you want to get an attorney? If you do, you have to do that. This is why talking is so important. This is why you cannot remain silent. See, in immigration law, they will accuse you of being here without documents, without permission. You have to prove that you have a right to stay here. If you do not say anything, they don't know. And they will assume that you are in fact here without status and they will deport you. If you understand that, then you have that ability to do that. In criminal court, it's different. That's why I told you about the police officer and the immigration. In criminal court, it's the government who has to prove that you have committed a crime. You are innocent until proven guilty. Immigration, you're guilty until you prove innocence.
Thank you. We had a question in reference to a person. What if I have my driver license, but I obtained it through a work permit, my work permit, or I've obtained my work permit. I have I obtained a visa, like a U visa, blah, blah, and I just carry my driver license with me in my pocket when I go out. Should I carry other documents with me, or just if immigration they see me and they can to deport me or withhold me for a certain amount?
Okay, if you're driving around and you do have a work permit and you do have a license, should you carry both of them? Yes. Why? Because you're required as a person who has the license to drive in this country, you're required to have that license with you at all times, and it has to be valid. It's the same thing with any immigration document. If you have something that says you have the right to work here, you have to maintain that with you all the time. Think of it this way. When you travel from one country to another, what's the most important document you have to have with you? A passport. You always have to have something that shows who you are. Here in this country, you have to show that you have the right to be here and the right to have that license, and that work permit works for you. Can you have a copy of it? No. You can make a copy of it and leave it at home in case you lose the one that you have, but you need to have the original card work permit with you. So don't worry about that. And if you have that on you and they pull you over, even immigration, they're not going to do anything. They won't arrest you. They're not going to detain you. They just let you go because you already have something or some kind of status. You're fine.
Thank you. There was a question reference to borders and the authority of 25 miles or 100 miles in reference to borders, port of entry, or also ports. Can you go more into detail? What's considered being next to a border? Um, if you can elaborate, and also the that U.S. office, a border patrol agent or CBP agent has.
That question usually comes up when we have somebody asking, when can they when can they stop me? Who can stop me? When does immigration have a right to stop me? Well, when we started out in immigration, the law is very simple. The Border Patrol or any immigration officer has the right to stop you and ask you where you're from, if you have papers, and anything else having to do with immigration, as far as your status goes, within 25 miles of a border. Now, understand that that is how it used to be. The first time that President Trump was in office, he changed that from 25 to 100. 25 miles to 100 miles. Why is that important? It's important because you have to understand that 100 miles from the border, immigration officers have a right to stop you and ask you these questions. And you cannot sit there and not answer them because, again, if you don't answer, they're going to assume that you're guilty, or better yet, that you have no status and you're going to make the arrest. So, why is a border? What is a border? That's important because the border is what's giving these guys an opportunity to stop you within 100 miles of the border. We all know about Canada and the United States. We all know about Mexico and the United States. We also have airports, international airports, the seaport, like for instance in Houston, we have the Port of Houston. Um, or we also have the consulates. Every one of the consulates or a mission or the embassy of another country is also a border. The consulate's car, the ambassador's car, those are borders. If the consul goes to a small city within the interior of the United States, like from here from Houston, if the consulate general from Houston decides he wants to go to Abilene, Texas, which is 100, way past 100 miles from any border, wherever the consul stops, if he sits there and he sets up to talk to his people, the door of that room is now the border. So anybody that is immigration officers can stop you within 100 miles of that border. So that's important to understand that. But at the same time, also understand that the officer has to write you has to use a proper section of law in order to be able to take you before an immigration judge. Are you always going to go before an immigration judge? No. That's up to the officer based on the section of law and based on the circumstances that you are being arrested.
Talking about the discretion of the officer, the person is already going through a process, an I-130, a family petition, or a U visa, or a T visa, or any type of visa in their residency, or any type of immigration process. What if they encounter the person doesn't have a driver license? They have their vehicle is proper, all lights work. They have been outside and they encounter a checkpoint and they see immigration. Or so be it that they encounter a police arrest them because of they don't have a driver license. They get put immigration hold. what can that person that they have already have an immigration process going on? Uh, can that they're going through once again visa, T visa, or any BAWA or I-130 application? Can that benefit them to prevent them not being deported, or can they still be deported?
We have a policy inside of immigration. And I say we, I'm no longer with immigration, but inside of immigration is a policy. And they policy says that if somebody already has some kind of process started, we are not to arrest them and detain them until or even try to make anything as far as a deportation unless we absolutely have to. The guy committed a crime, and or maybe there's some other reason why we have to do that. But for the most part, if you already have something started, the policy says that we are to leave you alone until a final decision is made on that process. Why? Well, let's say that somebody's putting in an application for citizenship, and we pull him over because he's, in one of the areas that we have a right to stop him. And while we're talking to him, we realize, you know what, this guy, there's something wrong here. We don't know exactly what it is, but there's something wrong here. So we go ahead and we make the arrest. We take him back to get detained, and we find that there's nothing there. Maybe the guy was just tired from work, or maybe he was just a little off that day. We all have that kind of day. And well, we have him in custody. We can go ahead and start doing the paperwork to get him deported. But he's already got a process started that if he wins the process, he will get a benefit, or in this case, citizenship, a right to remain in the U.S. If I deport him, then I'm going to have to cancel the residency, which means I'm going to have to cancel the process. And we don't want to do that. We don't have to. I mean, he hasn't done anything wrong. He is here legally. It was just that I felt he wasn't doing or wasn't looking right. So, no, we're going to go ahead and let him stay here and try to get that. If I'm wrong and I go ahead and deport him and I don't cancel the residency and I don't cancel the process for citizenship, and he does get the citizenship, I'm going to have to go and get him and bring him back into the U.S. And that extra money is going to cause problems for me, the U.S., and my boss is not going to be happy. So we try really hard not to do that. Now, understand what I just said. It is a policy. It is not a law. If the officer doesn't want to follow the policy, he can. Is it possible that under the new administration, they might do away with that policy? It's always possible because a policy is nothing more than that. It's just an agreement or it's just an instruction from the boss saying, don't do this, don't do that. It's not the law. The law says if I encounter somebody that I believe should be deported, I need to start working on trying to get him out of the country. How? There's several ways. Either get him to voluntarily leave, either get him to sign an order of deportation and make a self-deport, or take him before a judge or criminal judge or whoever I have to get something more solid and get him removed from this country.
Thank you. We have a question. Under what circumstances are detainees not taken in front of? This is a comment that we have from one of our viewers. Under what, once again, under what circumstances are detainees not taken in front of an immigration judge?
That's a good question too. Okay, so is it possible for a immigration officer to arrest somebody, detain that person, and remove them from the country without ever going before an immigration judge? Yes, it happens every single day. But you're going to have people that tell you, oh, no, that's wrong. That's against your rights. That's against civil rights. No. Again, I told you, as an immigrant, as a non-citizen, before immigration, you do not have all the rights under criminal law that you have in a regular criminal court or civil court. Immigration court is not like that. Everything that you receive through immigration is a benefit, and it's a benefit that can be taken away. When you apply at a bank to get a credit card and they give you that credit card, that's a benefit because they can take it away from you anytime they want. Whether you like it or don't like it, whether you did something right or you did something wrong, doesn't make a difference. They can cancel it anytime they want to. Well, immigration is the same way. But in this case, you get arrested. Now you're taken somewhere. They're going to take your fingerprints. They're going to take your photo, and you don't have a criminal history. You don't have nothing. but you also don't have any process started. You don't have any applications. You don't have nothing. You're here without papers. You crossed in illegally. The officer can start to the process to remove you from this country, and you will not have to go before an immigration judge if he so desires. It happens at the bridges. We call that exclusion. We have that happen every single day at the border. When people enter the country illegally, Border Patrol agents will arrest them, take them to the station, fingerprint them, photograph them, call the Mexican consul or whoever that individual is, and send them right back to Mexico. None of that's done in front of an immigration judge, a criminal judge, or civil judge.
Thank you. Talking about process, immigration process, can you go into detail, or can you share confidence to people if they suffer a crime? For example, let's say they go to the grocery store and all of a sudden someone that it's placed in probation starts harassing them and telling to country, and they start threatening them, can of reporting them to the police because it's not a crime. It can they report it to the police. As we know, there's people attacking. We have seen some videos where people tell others, "Hey, you have to go back to your country just based on skin color," and they don't know if they're documented or not. So, are there? Can they call to that? And is that a crime? And they file for a U visa based on your viewpoint as a former deportation officer?
That's a very good question. All right, so let me tell you how that works. First off, it depends on where it is and who's saying that to you and under what circumstances they're saying that. If somebody's calling you bad names, that they're using words like, you're, I don't know, if you're a wetback or something like that, and they're using some kind of bad words in that sense, no, there's nothing you can do about that. Unfortunately, in this country, we have what we call freedom of rights, freedom of speech. And under freedom of speech, they can say pretty much anything. Whether you like it or not, they can say that to you. The second part of that is, where is that being done? Is that being done in the middle of the street, or is it being done on a private company or private property? That also has something to do with it. Why? Because a person has the rights protected to them in a public setting. In other words, if they're standing in the middle of the street and they're calling you names, they have every right to do that under the First Amendment. Now, if they're in a business and they start calling you names, the owner of that business has the right to throw them out if he wants to do that. The owner of that business or management of that business can stop them from doing something like that if he wants to do that. He doesn't have to. There's no law that says he has to. Now, can you do anything about that? No. Can you sue the restaurant or company or store? No. They're not responsible for whatever their customers do. But if we go and we sit there and we say, the person told me, if you don't get out of here, I'm going to call immigration and I'm going to have them arrest you and deport you. Now that is called a threat. That is against the law. When and if they call the police, or you can call the police and now you can report them, because you cannot coerce, you cannot threaten anybody with some kind of harm, be it physical harm, emotional harm, or legal harm. So, in this case, by them telling you that you have to leave or they're going to call and they threaten you like that, well, what they actually did was they helped you become a victim. And as a victim, you may be eligible to remain in the United States, get residency and citizenship. So you might want to thank them.
Thank you, Ed. And can you share some information to people that have been victims and they actually reported to the police, but they feel confident of going through their immigration process of a U visa or a BAWA because they were victims of domestic violence? Can you explain a little bit to the they feel confident and where can they seek help? How to fill them out? Some people don't trust also attorneys because some attorneys might just take their money and not do the forms, or they tell them, "You were a victim of crime. Somebody stole your equipment out of your truck. You reported to the cops. You showed them the evidence, and they told them you don't qualify for a U visa, and they have emotional impact and they suffer economically." Can can you tell the public that if they can trust the system and how the EU visa process works.
Okay, well, that's a good question. Um, I can't tell you about the attorneys and I can't tell you about organizations, but I can tell you what the law says. The law says that everybody who's in the United States, regardless of what kind of status they have a right. You heard me? A right, not a benefit, but a right to go ahead and file an application for whatever benefit they want. It's up to the agency to decide whether they're going to give you that benefit or not. That's their choice. But you have a right to go ahead and fill it out. So if you do fill out something or you think you need to be filling something out, like for a victim, then understand that there are forms available for that. And there are people that will help you do that. There are nonprofits, there are attorneys, there are, even just people out there that have the ability to learn how to do that. You don't have to have um, a college degree to fill out these things. You can get somebody that's your neighbor, anybody who can read English, can read the instructions, can pretty much do the whole thing themselves. It's not very hard. I understand why some people would want to get help for that because there are some documents and support documents that you might want to get to help you. And what do I get? I don't know what to get. Well, yeah, that I understand that. But there are a lot of things that you can do. You can contact certain individuals that do that for a living. But here's the deal. The thing is this: when and if you decide you want to file some kind of application, we're going to use the U visa or the victim type visas as an example. Right off the top of my head, I can tell you that there's at least three types of visas that are eligible for under a victim. One is domestic violence. We have domestic violence, but that has to do very specifically with family members. So if you're living with somebody who is your family member and that person is a United States citizen or a resident, then you might be eligible to go ahead and apply for domestic violence visa underneath that. Still going to be a U visa, but it'll be under the domestic violence. However, if that person is not a citizen or a resident, you cannot use the domestic violence visa or the section of law in order to get a visa, a victim's visa. Why? Because the law very specifically says a resident or a U.S. citizen has to be your spouse or son or daughter that did that to you. It has to be somebody who's living with you and does that, but they have to have some kind of legal status as a resident or a citizen. So what happens? Well, in that particular case, the state will more than likely take up the charge, and that charge will go before a judge, and the criminal judge is going to put down assault. Now, that assault charge is a very big charge. That person who did that to you is more than likely going to get charged and convicted and go to jail, and then after that be deported. But because now you are a victim, you're eligible to go ahead and put in for a U visa. Most of the courts, most of the police departments, most of the district attorneys that take on those charges, they can help you. They have people in their offices who will assign the information to you and help you get whatever help you need. There might even be money available to you. It depends on what the circumstance is. But yes, and a lot of times, if you want, they can start helping you fill out some of the paperwork. They don't all do that, but about maybe 5 to 8% might do all that. Most of the time, you have to start the paperwork yourself, and then there's one section that has to be done by them, and they will more than likely get that done. But that's just one example. If you want to go and get the residency, if you want to get anything else, all these documents that on forms that need to be filled out, all the information on how to fill them out can be found online. And please, if nothing else, take this away from what we're talking about. Go to uscis.gov. Go directly to the immigration website and get your information from there, not from anybody else. And listen to what I just said, not from anybody else. USCIS for benefits, uscis.gov. If you want to learn more about immigration and ICE, go to ice.gov. Learn exactly from the website because that's going to be the most accurate, best information available out there. A lot of times we hear people give information. The information is good, it's correct, but it's not complete. So you want to be able to get the complete information.
We want to touch a subject about DACA since we had a comment about DACA. Hey, there's a let's say I renewed DACA. I haven't received documents. What should I carry? What happens if I encounter immigration? They report me. I haven't. I've been uh, I have never committed a crime, so I'm good standing American. What document can I carry? Given that I don't have a green card or a citizenship from the U.S. or no, can they not deport me? DACA? If you can elaborate, share some light into that.
Well, the DACA is very simple. That was started back in under President Obama, and that has something very important to offer a lot of the kids that were here and brought into the country without their knowledge. Uh, it has been struck down. In other words, a court has stopped DACA, but they also told immigration that immigration still has to take applications. It doesn't mean that immigration is going to grant that, and it doesn't mean you're going to get DACA, but the government still has to take that. Saying that, let me also say this. President Trump has already said on the campaign trail and here recently that he is going to try to do everything he can to get rid of DACA. But at the very same time, he said, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to give you guys something better. You deserve better, and I'm going to try to find a way to get something better for you. So that's one of the reasons I think that they still have the applications available to be submitted. I don't know that for a fact, and I don't think anybody knows that 100% other than the president. But at the same time, it's good to know.
Thank you. We had a question reference to asylum, those who come and those who came across the border and immigration apprehension. I'm here seeking asylum. Recently, there was talk about parole, and so someone that has asylum, and if what happens if they immigration? Can they be deported, or there's still section under parole?
Well, one of the things that, again, the President Trump has already said that he's going to eliminate parole. And the reason he's going to do that is because of what happened under asylum. As you know, under asylum, a lot of the people were getting parole and they had the opportunity to stay under parole um, while they were waiting for their asylum cases to be done. So he's going to do away with that. And I think it's something that we are just going to have to understand. Will it help us or hurt us? Both. There's still going to be some time in some cases that he's going to need to be able to do that with. But there's also times where we're going to have to wonder if it's something that we're going to be affected by. If you have parole, there's a very good chance you're not going to have it for long. And if you don't have parole, whatever permission to work that you have under that will also be stopped as well. Will there be anything you can do afterwards? We don't know yet. There's too many things that are going on, and we're not sure 100% as to what we can and cannot do. But we're trying to find that out, and hopefully, as the time goes on, we'll get a better idea.
Thank you so much for everyone that is watching us. If you have any comments or any questions that you want to ask Eduardo Rodriguez, a former deportation officer, you can always make it in the comments. If not, after, and I can always share those comments to him and questions, or you can always contact us via Messenger or any type of social media that we're going live or where you see us, and we're really happy to answer your question and help you. Ed, that you may have or that you can share to our audience. So for the young kids, the adolescent, young adults that are watching us, that their brothers and sisters that are undocumented, any thoughts, any comments that you can share to them, and also if you can share any comments to them, because I know we have a lot of friends protect the Hispanic community, the immigrant community that is being affected, and comments to them, or how can they contact you and work with you? And yes, if you can tell us.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I have to say is that, again, everything that I'm telling you today, these things that I'm telling you are things that I know personally. I either did these things myself, I ordered somebody to do it, or I had somebody who worked with me who told me that they did it. So everything that I'm telling you is based on experience. It's not based on something written in a book. It's not based on anything that somebody told me. It's not based on what somebody told me on the news or in a seminar or anything like that. It's things that I did personally. So when I tell you that an officer can arrest you and deport you without going before an immigration judge, I did that. If I sit here and I tell you that they can take away your benefits for whatever reason they want to, yes, it can be done. There's a lot of things that happen because immigration law is administrative law. So for you, all I can tell you is this: even though you hear all these things that are going on, and even though we have people being arrested right now immediately, don't lose hope. There is still a long ways to go. Let me give you an idea. When President Trump came into office last Monday, there was 11 million people, about 11 million people in the United States without documents. Since Monday, they have arrested pretty close to about 800 people and have deported over 500 and some odd people already. That seems like a lot. That looks like they're moving fast. Yes, it is. And it does. But understand something: 500 or 600 people out of 11 million is nothing. So there's still a really good chance that things will change. And there's always hope. There are ways to get things done, but you've got to find somebody who understands the law, not just correctly, but completely. That is very important. I know there's a lot of organizations out there and a lot of leaders and pastors that want to help their congregations and the people in their community. Please get the right information and please get the correct information. It's okay to sit there and say that a person doesn't have a right to speak, that they have a right to remain silent. There is nothing wrong with that. That is 100% correct, but it doesn't work in immigration arrest. It is only for criminal and only for civil type cases. If you do that with immigration, the officer will arrest you and will deport you. So please keep that in mind. And again, don't lose hope. Please don't lose hope. There's always more to do. And again, what can I tell you? It's hard out there. It's scary out there, but there's still a lot of things that can be done and will be done.
Thank you so much to all of the viewers, all the people that share the comments, and all of those who are watching, those who have shared our live. Once again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can comment section, or you can email us, call us at our phone number that we have in our social media pages. Have a blissful night, and thank you.